All right. So for today's Zoom, it's going to be on being interracial because we've been like touching on this topic like here and there, but we haven't really got to like dive into it. And a lot of people that watch the Zooms are interracial. So I feel like it's a big part of like what we should talk about. Um, as a reminder, I'm going to, um, sorry, this is tweaking. I'm going to say the goal of the Zoom. So I am trying to be a lawyer, trying to focus on civil rights and helping the Black community. And this was my way to like do something instantly. Like, obviously, it's hard when you're in school and stuff, but meeting on Zoom every weekend is a way that everyone can still like participate in activism while having like a busy life. And it just makes me feel like less overwhelmed with everything going on because it's like a small thing that we're able to do. Like, and I feel like even small things are really important. And we don't, like, as young people, we don't really talk a lot about these type of issues. And so I wanted to make a space where it was okay for people to talk about these type of issues, where they could feel safe just like venting about how it is living Black or interracial, whatever it may be. Oh, we're getting more people, so I'm going to admit them. Yes, and we do have a co-host, as I mentioned at the beginning of the Zoom. She's going to be joining us later. Oh, she just joined us right now, actually. And she's also interracial, so it's the perfect topic for today. Tatiana, I know you're just getting on, so if you want a second, I could like wait for a second, or you could introduce yourself now because I'm just getting started. Ty.
No. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi. I'm in my car. Sorry, I had a million things to do. Have we started recording? Yes, we are. I see it in the corner. Have you introduced yourself yet?
Yes, I literally just got finished introducing myself, so now you could introduce yourself if you want and like, yeah, say your little piece.
Okay. Well, hi everyone. I'm Tatiana. As everyone knows, I co-host with Rainice, and I also have a little hair gig on the side that I do. If y'all want to hit me up on Instagram at prettycurly60. I'm doing a lot more hair these days, so if you want to come through. But me and Rainice did have a little thing that I did want to point out. So we do have a Twitter. I don't know if she mentioned that, but we do have a Twitter. We'll put the links in the chat. Please follow us there. We will have information there as well as on the Instagram too. But just follow us on Twitter because we're trying to get some stuff rolling on over there. But we do, to help spread awareness for our like Zooms and just our project in general, we're gonna start selling pins, and they're really cute. We have a little design. You can see it on the Twitter if you follow us. But basically the pins are literally $5. And if you want to, so we think you guys can like Cash App us or PayPal or whatever, just send us money and a shipping address and we can get it sent to you. And you can, wear it on your backpack or maybe a uniform for work, or just pass them out or have them just somewhere displayed to help spread the word about this so we can have more like listeners and followers and things, because this is very important topics that we talk about, and it's really nice if everyone can have like a safe space where they can just vent or listen or get different perspectives and things like that. So yeah, I really hope, I'm very excited for this Zoom. So I really hope we have a good one today.
Thank you so much, Ty. I'm glad you came literally in the perfect timing. So yeah, that's basically what we're trying to do with the Zooms and with the pins. If you are interested in pins, you can contact us on our Instagram, or you could private message me on here, or message Tatiana. Literally, like, just hit one of us up and we'll make sure you get a pin. So starting at this Zoom, they will be up and ready. Sheesh, my throat. Um, so now we can go ahead and get started. We only have 3 speakers today, but I like having like less speakers because we're able to dive into the topics better. Um, so a lot of the time we do talk about Black issues here because we are all, well, not us all. People are here to listen, or we are people of color and we can relate in some way. And we don't really hear a lot of like talk, I feel like, about interracial and like being interracial and the problems that can come with that. It's not as much talked about, really, I feel like. So today I hope we can like talk about some of these issues. We have me speaking first, we have Trey speaking second, and we have my mom speaking today on her experiences. These are all really just like our personal experiences being interracial. And then I also wanted to touch on a few important like topics with this subject. So yeah, anyone want to say anything before we start? And always feel free to like jump in, by the way, or like raise a hand or private message or message to the whole group. But yeah, anybody have anything to say?
Yes. Hello, guys. My name is Ishmael Hassan. Now, I just want to say I'm very proud of you, Rainice and Tatiana, and everyone else that are involved here, spreading awareness about things and issues that really do matter in our community. And I don't think that you guys realize the impact that this has on people and how huge this can become, not only in your life, but in the lives of others. And just what I see is leadership. What I see is you guys impacting, all right, impacting others, impacting people, helping others cope with things and issues that that are happening in their life. And something that I learned is that when we normalize a struggle that people are having, it makes it less of a pain for them, because we know that we're not the only ones that are going through it. Others are going through it, and this helps us build that unity. This gives us that strength. So I'm very proud of the great work that you're doing. I see you're committed and you're consistent, and so I'm very proud of you.
Thank you so much. That means so much. We keep getting like these good comments, and I'm really glad because it just reassures me that like this is exactly what we should be doing, is like keep making this space no matter how small a group we get, like it's still important. So I'm really thankful for that. With that, to start us off, I will get going on my topic. Let me see. All right, so I want to start with just talking about my experience growing up biracial in a predominantly white area, then moving to a more diverse area, and then like coming to college. So basically, I started off at Makutillo Elementary, and that's a predominantly white area. Makutillo is predominantly white, and that was really the first time I noticed that I was, which is crazy because I went to like elementary school too in Marysville, but I was so young then, like there was no really pointing out my race. But getting into Columbia as I started getting older, that's when I really started noticing like differences, because I would get clowned on a lot for like my hair. People would say like it was crunchy, or they would say like, I don't know, I dressed funny. Or there's one distinct memory that I talk about like in my personal statement when I was applying for college, which was at my 5th grade graduation. I just like look into the crowd and I see a sea of like white faces. And then there's just like my dad, like right there, the only Black dude in the whole crowd. And I remember just feeling like embarrassed. And it's like really sad because that's how a lot of people feel, and just people of color in general can relate to just feeling like outcasts when they are in a predominantly white area. But basically, yeah, that's when I started to feel like, I don't know, I started to struggle with my identity, which is what I think all interracial people go through. At some point, all of us have a struggle with our identity because we don't know like which side we're supposed to be more like, because having 2 cultures is like super, like each of them can be super different. So it's a battle deciding like, oh, do I fit in here or do I fit in there? So yeah, in elementary school, I definitely did not feel like I fit in. I got bullied a lot. I have another memory of like some white kid telling me, oh, I wish you straightened your hair the whole year. I would have liked you if you did that. And that was like the beginning of my hair straightening phase, which I feel like almost all Black women can also relate. We all have that hair straightening phase where we're just like feeling insecure about our natural hair. And so after elementary school, that's when I started straightening my hair all the way into middle school. Even though I was in a more diverse area, I just really internalized those like comments that I got from the white people that I was surrounded with. But then once I did get to middle school, I realized like, because I went to Explorer, it's a really diverse area. I realized there is a lot of diversity and there's like nothing wrong with me, but I still had trouble like finding where I fit, because I just always felt like, and a lot of interracial people I believe can agree, like you don't fit in a box. Like you don't fit with this side, you don't fit with that side. Like, and it can be a struggle because like you just go through like, you kind of like form into whoever you're with because you don't know who you are and you don't fit in like a specific box. So, oh, if I'm with my Black friends, I'm going to act this way because I want to be accepted. If I'm with my white friends, I'm going to act this way because I want to be accepted. And so it was like a lot of just that back and forth for me, like growing up. And it took me a long time to find my voice, to even feel comfortable to completely say, like, I am a proud Black woman, because for a while there, I did get bullied. I was called Oreo from like my Black friends, or like I didn't feel welcome in like the Mariner Black Student Union sometimes. And like it was just like hard because you feel like you're getting it from both sides then, and it's like, what am I supposed to do, you know? So it took me a while to find my voice to speak up on issues that I really cared about. And it honestly took me until I got to college, where I was surrounded by a group of Black people that were just like how the community should be. Black is Black, like we're all one, we all should be united. And they just made me feel welcome, and they made me feel like my voice mattered. And if I didn't join like BSU in college, I probably wouldn't even be doing like these Zooms like today, because it really did give me my voice. But I wanted to also talk about, so with having like two cultures, I really wanted to stress the point of how important it is to introduce the child to the two cultures. I feel like is really, really important. And luckily my mom was mixed and my dad was Black, so I definitely got like introduced to my culture. But I feel like because I started off in like a predominantly white area, I did miss out on like certain things. And I just want to stress that if you do have like an interracial child, you do introduce them to that culture. You do try to educate yourself on like the other culture that you're with, because it's important for them to be learning both sides so that they can find their voice and like be sure of themselves sooner in life, and they don't have to go through like this identity dance at least for as long, you know, because I think it's just a fact that all interracial people are going to have that like back and forth with identity. But being more sure in like both cultures, it can make it easier. I feel like, because people can't make you like unsure of yourself anymore. And then what else? Oh yeah, I also wanted to stress too, just being careful like what we say. We talked a little bit about like stereotypes and stuff like that. And we all like to joke and everything like that, but just remember a lot of things get internalized, especially like younger ages. Like you want to be careful. You don't want to say you're pretty for a Black girl, you're pretty for a mixed girl. That type of stuff gets like internalized. So I just feel like sorry, admitting someone really quick. Another important thing is just with just anyone in general, being careful like what you say, because it does get internalized. That racial inferiority is real. So yes, that was the other point I wanted to make. Before, I had like a little poem I wanted to say about like being mixed, but before I started, did anybody have anything to add so far?
Yes, I love the example that you used about the roots, right? Another example that can add on to that is like it's like a tree. That you know, in terms of the children, it's like a tree that has good foundation, that has good, you know, the roots are firm. And what happens is that if the tree has those roots, it's going to withstand any storm, versus if it doesn't have that root, it's going to get knocked down left and right. And building that foundation and that roots, you know, for the children regarding their identity is very important. And then the last thing I wanted to say is, you know, to make firm, right? To affirm means to make firm. And so affirming those beliefs, affirming the things you want to instill in them, it's going to make it firm. So just encouraging and uplifting, right? Because we're already used to being degraded. It shouldn't be that way, right? We're used to people talking down on us. And so the best thing we can do for each other, and especially the children, is to affirm them, tell them they're beautiful, tell them their hair is beautiful. And what that's going to do is it's going to make it firm. And just like that foundation that you're talking about, because they're used to hearing that their hair is beautiful, that they're beautiful from their mom and other people, that belief is firm in their mind, which means that regardless of what someone says, they're not going to be impacted.
Yes, that's very true. Thank you so much. I definitely think that's a big part of it too. I would say take even more care with like people that are going to have that struggle with identity, because they're the ones that really need that like affirmation like you're talking about. So yes, thank you so much. And LJ?
Hello, everybody. I'm LJ. I'm a first-year law student at U of I. I went to undergrad with Rainice. I really appreciated you for sharing what you shared. Like for me personally, obviously I'm not multicultural, but I think what you say really has some merit, because like, in the eyes of the world around you, it seems like you're Black, right? But in the bigger scheme of things, you are multicultural, and I think it is fair for like you to acknowledge that, and for everyone around you to understand that you are multicultural and you're not just a Black woman. But like you said as well, the microaggressions, I think we also need to be aware when those are being applied to us, and like how they're being applied to us. And I think it's fair for you to always be able to like navigate those situations in a way that like you don't allow somebody to say these sort of things to you, like, oh, you're cute for a Black woman or whatever the case. Like I think that those things are like super unfair, but just talking about it, I think does bring the focus to it, so we can just wrap our heads around like the fact that people are multicultural and they're not just this one-dimensional type of deal. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's like the other important thing too, is that we do have to have these like conversations separate of just like, we are included when we have these Black conversations, but also like LJ is saying, like we have to keep in mind that this is a whole nother thing too. Like being interracial comes with a whole nother set of issues. And like, it's important to have like those conversations together, but also separate, I think. And what was my other point? I kind of lost it. So I think I'm gonna just
about the poem.
Oh yeah, okay. I'm gonna go into my poem. But to end, I just wanted to say that also if you are like interracial, once again, like LJ was saying, like just really talking about what comes with that, and like having these conversations is really important to like not feel alone. Like I think that's what Ismail was saying earlier, like just to feel like you're not alone facing these battles, basically. But this is my poem about being interracial. Little brown girl, wait no, little white girl, wait no, just a little too dark girl, but a little too light girl. Little girl with a head of naps, the kind of hair you couldn't get the comb through, the kind that requires greases and more products than you could ever think of. But then there's the little girl with the fair skin and freckles, the little girl who is way too out of place in her white community, but then way too out of place with her Black brothers and sisters. You stare at her with confusion, and she's constantly asked, "What are you anyways?" The one that was born with the blessings and privileges of her two skins, but at the same time was born with a curse. That little girl who was teased at the playground because of the fact that her hair was crunchy and weird. Just straighten it, they told her. It looks better that way. Relax or repeat, just trying to find out my true identity. Two skins that girl will never fit in. Two skins, it can feel like a lose or a win, because two skins also mean two perspectives. I'm always learning twice the amount of lessons. My two skins ended up being my greatest weapon. And so with that, this little mixed girl is now proud to say, she don't fit into your checked boxes, and that's okay. So yeah, I feel like that kind of like illustrates my journey of like being interracial, like just struggling back and forth, and then ending with like my knowing who I truly am, which is a proud Black interracial woman. So yes, Tatiana, you wanted to say?
Yeah, I waited until you read your poem so I could reply to all that, because I'm so glad me and you are doing this, because literally like I 100 million, especially as a woman, like I just relate to literally everything you brought up and said, especially with the whole your dad being the only black one in the crowd, because literally same. Like he's much darker than me, and it's just like it's always a whole thing. And I relate way too much, especially with the whole hair straightening thing. Oh my God. Like I really appreciate all of that, because that is literally also my life. And it's just such a struggle, especially the whole identity thing. Like, am I black today? Am I white today? Am I too much? Am I doing this? Like, even with my braids, like I feel like dark black girls kind of look at me and are like, can she even wear those? Because I feel like as a light skin that I truly I'm not all the way accepted into the black community, even though I definitely am, but I'm also not, because I am mixed and my skin is light and my hair isn't, I don't have 4C hair. Like I feel these little things because I am mixed, and it is such a struggle. And it's nice to know that, we relate to that on a level. It also sucks that we relate to that on a level as well, but it's just like not being alone in the situation definitely helps. And I really hope, one day, like I always say, we can just bake a cake and be happy, because it's fine. I am a black woman. I'm a black interracial woman. I am tricultured. And that's a whole different thing, but it's very refreshing to just be related to and not be the only one, and all these other things. So, and that poem, oh my God, literally just all of that. So thank you for all of it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I feel, oh, speaking of the poem, it reminded me too that I talk about one part where I say like it's a privilege and a curse. And that's because like it is a privilege to be like mixed. People can't tell what you are right away, whereas a black person, they're going to be known as black right away. And like, we get off with a lot of stuff, and like being lighter skinned is like looked at with a lot of cultures with like more positivity. So it's definitely a privilege, but at the same time I say it's a curse, because we do have that like struggle with identity, because it's like we're not looked at as completely black, we're definitely not looked at as white. So like it's like that double-edged sword, I feel like. So that's just one point I also wanted to address. And then lastly, just the whole family struggle, like having two cultures of family. Like I still have, a grandma that has very old minded views. And it's crazy because she, was with a black person. I mean, that's how our whole family line started. But like just having like those views with some of your family members sometimes, where it's like they're a little bit racist, because so you have like both that in your family, like the black side and then the little bit racist side that say questionable things, and like you internalize that stuff too. And I don't think a lot of people realize like what those little comments do to people. Like I really sit there and like, maybe it's just people with anxiety, but I'll really replay that comment in my head over and over again and internalize it. So I can't stress enough like the struggle of like having those two cultures, but also like being really careful like what you say, and educating, like I already said, educating yourself on that culture that you're choosing to be with. If you're choosing to be with a black person, then you need to educate yourself on their issues, so that you don't say something that your child is going to internalize, like, and not forget about themselves. So yes, that was really my piece. Any other last comments?
Yes, I wanted to circle back. Oh, go ahead.
Mine's really quick. Just on that last part of, if you're gonna get with a black person, learn, just a little something about their culture. For the parents who are with another black parent, and you guys have a black child, a mixed child, please look up on YouTube how to do their hair. I cannot stress this enough. It stresses me out just watching kids with just some wild ass things going on. Like, there are products, there are things, especially these days, like there's so much you can do please just do not sit there and have your hairstyle just be dry or just looking any type of way, because they're already gonna be looked at a certain way. Do not add on to the problem. Please, YouTube is 2 clicks away. There's thousands of videos. I have videos. Like, please just educate yourself on the simple things like hair. Hair is so important in the Black community. So please, that is all.
I agree 100%. I'll be seeing some nappy heads and I'm just like, why? Why do you do that to your child? Like, it's not hard to really look up stuff. Like, we all do it all the time for pointless stuff. Look up something so your child doesn't have to be, one, looking a mess, but two, confused about stuff, like I just feel, I can't stress enough how annoying it is when there is that one parent that just gets with a Black person just to get with a Black person. They don't educate themselves on anything at all. And then they're still saying dumb shit. And I'm just like, you have a Black child. Like, you should know better than to say that. But some people don't because they don't do the research. So yeah, that's super important. Thank you very much, Tatiana. Any other things? Oh, Trey. Trey?
My bad. Sorry, I'm feeling under the weather, so my camera's off. But I wanted to touch on what you just said. A large part of that is because when a lot of, not trying to seem negative, but I mean, it's the fact, and I feel like it needs to be addressed, when a lot of white people or even non-white people, just non-Black people, they get with the Black person, it's not even because like, oh, I'm so in love with this person and it just so happened to be this way. They are purposely going out their way to have this mixed biracial child. And it's a large factor in why they got with this Black person. They want the biracial child, not the biracial people that look like necessarily even you with the darker hair and the darker eyes. They want someone who looks very exotic, and they kind of pick apart their features and they try to kind of, it's like Build-A-Bear almost, and it's really creepy. And I feel like people don't talk about how enough anyway, at least in this area, they don't talk about how there's so many interracial relationships and they don't do the research because they think it's some type of prize to get this, mixed race child or get this Black man, and they also will in turn talk down on, so they have this level of anti-Blackness and also this kind of idolization with Blackness as well. And I feel like that is very important to bring up because there is a lot of ignorance and they're not going to do the work. They're not going to do the research because they just want this pretty baby, or they just want this BBC, or they just want this BBW. You know what I'm saying? There's so many there's a lot of over sexualization with Black men and Black women. And there's a lot of fetishization with wanting mixed race children as well.
Period. You always say it, just what everybody's thinking, you say it. And I thank you so much for that, because that is very true. And that's something we definitely should talk about when talking about interracial problems and stuff, because I mean, look at the Kardashians. Like, we don't think that they were really selective with like how their family line is, like I definitely could see that with that, especially because now being Black is like a trend, except for when it isn't. So yeah, I definitely agree. Thank you so much for bringing that point up, Trey. Anybody else want to bounce off of that?
Yeah, well, I wanted to go back to what Trey said and then go back to kind of what I think of the summary of this topic. I guess Trey, it's about taking responsibility and taking ownership and actually knowing what you're getting into and what you're signing up for. And I guess it's a matter of thinking long-term, right? If you're choosing to be committed in a relationship with this person, you have to really think about the future and the impact of the decisions you're making, right? And actually plan for it versus just letting it happen. That lack of accountability, that lack of responsibility, that lack of ownership is just crazy, and the impact is dangerous. But going back to, so I originally talked about being rooted, right, in terms of raising kids, but this is more general in terms of the adults, and so we talked about struggles that we face, and remember that those, even though we shouldn't have to face those struggles, we shouldn't, right? But that's the reality today. And what I want to just to tell everyone is that yes, those struggles are real and it hurts and it's painful. But remember that those struggles are what's shaping your character, is making you a better and a stronger person. And in terms of being rooted as an adult, what I would say is get to know who you are, get to know your identity, right? Just get to know yourself, get to know your roots. And when that happens, just like that tree, you're going to be unshakable regardless of the storms that happen. Um, and the other thing is that remember that other people's opinion of you does not determine your reality. And when you're rooted in who you are, right? When you're confident in yourself, right? Your background and everything about you. And when you get to love that, and it takes effort, it takes being intentional, and it takes, it takes time to do that. I'm not saying that's something we can accomplish overnight. But what I am saying is get to know your roots and be rooted in who you are so that you can be unshakable. And regardless of, there's always going to be storms, right? But just be rooted in who you are and get to know yourself. That's the biggest thing that really helped me face a lot of the struggles that I've had, in elementary school. I remember feeling ostracized. I remember feeling like I didn't really belong, right? And the last thing I want to say is in terms of not feeling like you belong, is be in an environment that really appreciates you and who you are, right? The right place will appreciate you, it will love you, it will encourage you, and it will uplift you. And the wrong place will only tear you down. It's like adding a sheep into a herd of lions. Poor sheep. It's gonna get, torn apart. So just put yourself in a good environment that fosters that growth, that really helps you grow, that helps you get to know yourself and get to know, your identity, this is one of those environments, as if, as what I'm talking about, this is exactly one of those environments. So thank you for, giving us that space.
Thank you so, so much. And yeah, so you touched on a lot of things there, so I'm just touch on some real quick, but I definitely agree with like what Trey was saying, one about like I can never freaking say that word, fetishization. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. I can't freaking say that word for some reason. But like I definitely agree with that. I think it's like a both sides thing, like what you guys are saying. Like a lot of like Black men, I see it firsthand out here at Eastern. They like being fetished. Like the football players love it. The fact that the girls like just flock to them literally just because they're Black. So like it definitely is like some people need to take accountability and see like, okay, this isn't a person like for me, or they will have those issues, especially like with starting a family or anything like that. But also I do think it's like a bigger issue where it's just the targeting of Black people and like manipulation in a sort of way. So I think it comes from both sides, definitely. And both sides should take accountability and like really think about like why you're choosing to be with this person. And when you are choosing to be with the person of color, what comes with that? Like, it's not just I'm going to be with the person of color. It's I'm going to have all this culture like introduced to me. I'm going to have this for my kids, like all that. Like it comes with a lot, That's why I keep trying to tell my friends out here my age having babies. I'm just like, you're having a Black baby. Do you know what that means? Like you really actually got to think about that. So yes, thank you guys so much. And then we can go straight to Trey if you're ready, Trey.
Yes. So I'm actually kind of excited that you mentioned that about the both sides taking accountability, because my story is a personal experience, and that has a lot to do with how, even though I'm not biracial, you can call me multicultural, whatever, I'm Black at the end of the day. Both my parents are Black, but how white supremacy and racial fetishization, and that really affects my family, even though we are generations going back Black. So moving here to Washington, going from your teachers are Black, all your friends are Black, you're going from that environment to moving in a space where nobody looks like you. And I was exposed to a lot of passive aggressive racism that I had to learn to kind of navigate all by myself, because I was the only one. I didn't really have anyone to talk to, and I didn't really understand what was going on. So it wasn't really like I could bring it up to my parents. I didn't really get into those talks until Trayvon Martin died. And that's when I actually sat down with my parents. But I was exposed to a whole bunch of shit prior to then that I had to work out myself. But what I wanted to touch on was, I feel like being Black, right, here in my family, it was kind of instilled, and this goes all the way back to slavery. It has been instilled in a lot of Black people that being closer to white and being in close to proximity to whiteness is somehow like you've made it. And the mindset of some of my family members has definitely affected of why I'm so pro-Black now and why I'm so like against certain things. And why I have this mindset, because it's really frustrating, because you look a certain type of way, but you're telling you to kind of reject it. So for example, the older generation, my grandparents, that generation, they are definitely so anti-Black even within themselves. They're dark skinned, but they, purposely went out their way to marry lighter skinned people. Almost everybody, my generation, my age, is light skinned. I'm like one of the few darker skinned people in my family of my generation, because everybody older than me has kind of was like, oh, well, we want to get into that closer proximity of whiteness. And so that, resulted in a lot of uncomfortable situations where they kind of like, oh, well, you like mixed girls, don't you? Or like, oh, you should get you a pretty, white girl. And it kind of blew my mind. Like, as I'm older now, I'm like, why the hell hasn't anyone ever said, like, maybe you should shut up and stop telling them that? But that's kind of the mindset that everybody had then. And that was so heavily inflicted in my family that my mom's generation, she was actually the opposite. My mother could pass as biracial. She has a lot of features similar to Rainice, but it's actually the opposite X spectrum. So she, I guess, internalized that and views darker skin is better. So I think that's why she's attracted to darker skinned men, why she dates predominantly darker skinned people, and just how that's affected. And so now, me being kind of seeing in this and witnessing all this, I definitely take pride in who I am, and I definitely take pride in all Black people, and realize, like, stop this, divide. Like, I have people in my family who look mixed, who look like they're from Africa, who look like they could probably pass as white people, but at the same time, we're all Black and we all know we're Black, but there's this divide, and it's associated with white supremacy. And so, and I feel like bringing up here, nobody has really taken accountability for themselves to realize, like, okay, just because we move away from Black people, and just because we move closer to white people, that doesn't diminish the problems that we have within this family, within this area, within other people, or white people around us, how they treat us, how they affect us. We think it's way better than, the South being called, blatantly the N-word, versus not getting a job because we're Black. It's like, well, at least they didn't call us the N-word, so it's better, right? It's like, no, it's just another form of microaggressions and racism, but you would take this rather than that. But neither nor cancels out. So that's just my experiences. I would love to open up the conversation to talk about how that affects everybody. I know Rainice touched on it, growing up or whatever. But I definitely just want to touch, say my piece. That's how I feel being fully Black. So I can only imagine being actually biracial and embracing your Blackness, and that's not fully embraced or accepted as well. And so I actually have a couple of maybe more staunch views about dating interracially and things like that, and preserving your Black culture, preserving your Black pride. But I think that's just because it was so diminished in my own family. So when I start a family of my own, and when I get older, that's why I push HBCUs, that's why I push Black love, that's why I push so many things like that. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's harsh, that's anti-discriminatory, that's X, Y, and Z. But it's just like, you have to understand, like, this stuff is important. And people, at least I've heard people like civil rights leaders and activists, everybody my age, been like, well, since integration, marriage, Black couples, they've since fallen, there's been a lot of things outside of just romantically. And I'm not saying I'm pro-segregation. I'm kind of stumbling over my words here, but basically what I'm saying is, let's talk about the deeper effects of what it is to live in an integrated society, and how that's affected the Black community in a positive way and a negative way. Because we only think positively, but we don't think negatively as well. So from that point, I would like to open up the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Trey. I'm so glad you touched on all of that. I was actually gonna have my other friend speak today, Gracia, and she is Lebanese, I believe, and she wanted to speak from being like looking like full Black, but she's like actually Asian and Black. and everything like that. And I think she would relate to like how you feel a lot of the time as well. So I really thank you for that perspective, because it is like, it's just like such a culture shift, and like you have to learn how to like code switch and everything with having these multiple cultures. um but what I was also going to say is your viewpoint sounds a little bit like that Black nationalism viewpoint, which I honestly don't see an issue with. Like, I know some people can find it like extreme, but like at the end of the day, I see how like what you're saying, if we don't talk about what it means to be integrated, like a lot of our culture is lost, or like people take credit for it or like profit off of it. And that does come with being in like an integrated society. And yeah, so even just the fact of like dealing with the societal issues is a big thing too. What I was going to say was, because you were talking about that culture of white supremacy, um it's literally so ingrained in our society that when I took this African studies class, he was telling me like all the ways they say like white as being better and like closer to God, like oh, it's just a white lie, like okay, so it's just a small lie. Or if they're talking about Black, then it's always more negative with the connotation, the black sheep of the family. Like, this is really all like internalized, and they do this to us on purpose, like so that we do think we're inferior and that we think like lighter is better. That stems back from like the beginning of time. They try to associate white with like godly and like Black with like sin, you know? So yes, I definitely agree with like everything you said. Did anybody else want to bounce off of his thoughts?
I got to get going shortly, but yeah, I really agreed with some of the things that you said. And speaking of integration, it really made me think about something, kind of a legacy, right? Kind of what we want to pass down. You know, when you're talking about that culture, right? What kind of, legacy do we want to leave our children, right? Of course, there's, trauma that we've dealt with, right? And that we're still dealing with. But do we want to pass that trauma on, or do we want to pass something different, right? What do we want to pass down to our children? So it's a matter of kind of, I guess, healing, right? Again, I'm talking about, I guess the main word for today is kind of my word for today is being rooted, right? And part of that is healing through the things that we got to recover from. And then so we can look forward and say, how do I want to bring up my children? What kind of culture do I want to instill in them? What do I want to teach them, right? And to kind of summarize, I guess legacy is something we have to think about as part of the integration into, the future. And that is transfer of values, right? Culture, mindset, lifestyle. And so just think about legacy, right? Legacy for, both the men and the women. What kind of legacy do you want to leave for your children as part of that integration, looking at the future, right? And who they're going to be and who you want them to become. And just, I guess it's clearing the path for them, so that they can, have things easier. And part of that is teaching them, right, and educating them. Also, that's all I got to say. And I will see you guys next time. I got to get going right now.
Thank you so much, as always, for your words. They're always like needed. So I'm really, really appreciative that you could even come at all. Anybody else have any other things to say on this? No. Trey, did you want to talk about like your interracial dating and everything that you said you had some points on?
Well, yeah. So I have I think it's at some point, being in Washington State, we'd have no choice but to date interracially at some point in our lives, right? So I have definitely been in situations where I have dated interracially, men and women, and both experiences were slightly different for slightly different things. I noticed that, especially with men, they might be more kind of looking for this dominant, very hyper masculine, overly sexual and being, and that definitely stems from stereotypes of a Black man, how a Black man should be. And women, they definitely have this other, just kind of like a lack of knowledge and I don't take the time to educate people anymore, which is why I find myself always gravitating more towards Black people, because, you know, I'm my pro-Blackness, but it's also because I don't want to have to take the time to explain who I am as a person, how I identify X, Y, and Z. And that is not for me to say that I am anti-interracial relationships, but that is for me to say, like, if you really value that, then you definitely should look more towards yourself. And what, if you identify as a Black person, you feel strongly with your Blackness, I don't think you're gonna get that from anywhere else. And to touch on, okay, so this is actually an interesting topic for me. And I may be stumbling over my words, but I'm trying not to offend anybody because I know a good chunk of the room is biracial. But I actually had a conversation with my mother, who those of you who have not seen my sister, is very white passing. That girl does not. But we've had a conversation, and she was saying how basically my mom, she was the one who kind of instilled in me, like, marry a Black woman, don't marry out your race. And she's not a bad person when she says this, but I mean, she has her own experiences, but you know, everything is a personal experience, and why you project things and why you tell people certain things. And one of her things was, Black women tend to raise their children, and this is an opinion, this is her opinion, not mine, I'm just putting this out there. Black women tend to raise their children with more confidence and self-pride than white women in their children, and which is why I feel like a lot of people when we talk about, there's a kind of joke, I think an ongoing joke in the Black community, like, okay, biracial people, you can only celebrate half of Black History Month, but if your mama Black, you can do the full month. And I think that really stems from Black women instilling more self-pride in their children, whereas with a Black man and a white woman, it's more so of they see white women as a prize. And we already have this thing in the Black community where Black men, they tend to steer away from Black women anyway. And there's several conversations of why we can get into that. And white women, they see themselves, and they come from, and even if it's unintentionally, they still have this sense of entitlement that they grew up with. And a lot of the times they're not going to check that entitlement. So if they aren't in a relationship with the Black man anymore, and if the Black man didn't even value himself like that, it's not likely that this white woman is going to take the time to educate her child or educate herself on how her child should be. Which is another reason as to why me personally, I do not gravitate towards white women, because I've seen that even in dating, just the self-entitlement, the self-privilege, the things like that. And I can see how that's going to affect things later on in life, especially when I introduce you to my family who is very X, Y, and Z, you know what I'm saying? I'm not going to continue feeding that whatever. And that's more that, but yeah, that was just my opinion on that. I know some people are going to take that some type of way. It was just an opinion. I don't think it's a wrong opinion. I think it's just a perspective, and we can discuss that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I could definitely see how that is true, like, at least for the fact of like having more of that like Black pride instilled, like with having a Black mom. Because like for me, all of my Black pride came from like my mom, surprisingly, and she's interracial. And like my with my dad, like he definitely instilled like certain things in me, but like I don't know, my mom, I feel like she struggled with her identity, but she made sure that like I didn't struggle as much. Like I was always like introduced to like she always encouraged me to do like different programs, and like I did like youth development program for specifically like Black students, and that is like where got like a lot of my Black pride and like confidence from. So like yeah, I could definitely see how that would be a thing like to acknowledge for sure. Tatiana.
I wanted to touch on the interracial dating, because I also, well, okay, so I have had interest in white boys, I will say, because I was in like high school and stuff. But I have had interest in white boys in the past, and you know, whatever, they're just like crushes. I never actually saw like a future with them. But I thought it was important for me to date and marry a man of color, just because I feel like it's like you don't have to, like explain yourself. Like they already understand the struggle, they already go through it, it's already like a mutual thing. And like, and my mom's, I'm pretty sure it's my mom's god sister, and she's beautiful dark woman, and she's married to a white man, and he totally like understands, like he, you know, doesn't put her in certain situations, or when they are in a certain situation, he knows like how to navigate it and what to do. And I wish everybody could be like that, but it really just isn't that way. And for me, it was just important to get with someone who is of color, because when I do have children and they are going to be Black, or, you know, they're going to be colored, because I am colored, regardless of who I get with, I just want them to understand like what our children are going through. Because I feel like when you don't grow up that way, you just don't get it. And I mean, you know, it is what it is. But like for my white friends, who like we kind of just grew up completely opposite, because their family is more well off than mine is. And so they already had like so much privilege, just money wise, but then they're also white. And it's just like, I can't relate to that. And then they can't relate to my struggles. And it's not something that I want to sit here and either explain, or I don't want, and luckily she's my best friend. Like she totally is pro like everything. She's not, you know, an ist of any type. But I mean, it's just like, I don't want to have to feel like with my partner, if they were white, that like I'm getting so upset over this situation, like George Floyd or Trayvon Martin or something like that. And they're like, well, it's just another Black person, or it's just this, or it's just that. Like, it's something they don't understand. And I'm not going to sit here and try to explain that to you. Like, you can either pick up a book and read it, or you can literally just watch the news, or, you know, something like that. So I do. And my parent, obviously, I am a product of interracial, you know, a couple. But my mom is the white one and my dad is the Black one. But my mom is also half Mexican. So she understands also that struggle of being within a colored family, you know, her whole life. And her adoptive dad, my grandpa that I've only known, is Filipino. So she's always been with colored people. And it's something that she understands when she did get with my dad, is, you know, the struggles that they go through. She also understands, because people just don't like color at all, whether it's just a little tint darker than them, like just absolutely not. And I just think that is important. And I don't have a problem with Black people who only want to have a Black family. I mean, that's fine. Like, I don't have a problem with that. Just as long as you like, obviously don't teach your kids to hate anyone else, which is what I feel white people do when they only get with white people, is then it's a whole thing of these people are gross and we're, you know, on top. And I don't see it that way when Black people try to get with Black people, because it's just, we want to spread the Black love around and, you know, all that goodness. And I think that's fine. Yeah, sorry, I feel like I went on forever, but yeah, that's just my take on interracial relationships.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I definitely feel like, I don't know, it's just, I think most Black people can agree that it's a different situation, like wanting to find Black love, because we're trying to preserve our culture and we're trying to find someone that understands us better. It's not us choosing to be with a Black person just because they're Black, you know. And that's what the difference is there with like a lot of white people. They just choose that person because they want their kids to look a certain way, or because they think Black people are cool or whatever. And then going back to a few points, because I'd be typing like so I don't lose my train of thought, because I always do. You guys both kind of touched on like being interracial, you can relate to like a lot of Black experiences. So I think that is one other thing that's hard, is like you do relate so much to your Black side. And I think that's why a lot of mixed people are naturally more drawn to that side. And so like when you don't get accepted from that side, it can be like really like hard, like it can hurt, because it's like you relate more to that side. Like, I don't know, I feel like almost every mixed person like feels closer to that side of them, because like that's what society sees, is that you're mixed with something. They don't see you as like a white person, you know. So like it's hard dealing with that, like not being accepted to the one place that you feel like you fit in more so, even though, you know, you still struggle with that identity, but you fit in more so with that. And then also I wanted to touch on like even like like for example what you were saying, Tatiana, being with someone who is white and does really understand those issues, because like my closest friend, my sister, she's white, and like she definitely is like someone I never had to explain things to. I never had to say, don't say the N-word, don't do this, don't do that. Like she just always knew. But even still, it's just those, they can't empathize with you. They can't like really understand like what you go through. Empathizing and sympathizing are two very different things. They can sympathize with your situation, but they don't know like how that feels. So I think that's a big thing too. And like what Dr. O was saying, the last meeting, um it's not like white people are born just saying, oh, I'm better than everybody. It's the fact that they're born into a society that already is built on white superiority, so they're going to come out being born feeling a little more superior than like others, whether they admit it or not. They have a little, they know that what their place in society is higher than a person of colors, you know. So it's just like a fact, like every white person is going to be a little bit entitled, because that's just how our society is built. And yeah, that's all I really wanted to say for those points. Did anybody else have anything to add on Trey's points before we get switched to my mom? No. All right, Mom. I see you making that face. You know what time it is.
I know. I usually share my little 2 cents and not on camera. So now I'm on the spot. So my experience is a lot similar to all of the things that you guys have already talked about. Product of an interracial couple. My parents met in the 70s. So it wasn't because it was a cool trend. It was because they met and instantly were connected and were together from that point on. And they were very young. They had me at 19. They struggled as an interracial couple. My dad and his family are also multicultural. He's Black, he's white straight from the plantation. He's got Native American, French, Cree Indian. So they're a whole melting pot of cultures as well. And there's all shades and colors in the family. And that's who I mostly grew up with. I didn't know I was any different than them until I entered grade school. I literally had no idea that my skin tone was different than theirs and that there was any reason. I thought everybody's dad was Black and bald because that's what I saw. Had experiences with my mom's family periodically growing up. I didn't get to experience them a lot until much later in the years because my mom did have a stepdad that was racist, and it actually caused a lot of problems for my mom to be dating my dad, and my dad's family always supported her with that. And I was myself, and some of, my sisters probably don't have a lot of recollection of the time because we're all about 5 years apart. So we all experienced life a lot differently. And we're all different shades. So we all identify differently. But I like my earliest memory of realizing that there was something different about me that came from the family was my mom's stepdad sitting me at the table when I was, I don't even know how old, it was not old enough to know anything about algebra, and not wanting us to be in the swimming pool when everybody else was in the swimming pool, and making me sit down and do these algebra problems in order to be able to go in the swimming pool. And I didn't even know what I was doing. It was just so much anxiety. I just remember, yeah, that's all I can explain. It was just anxiety. Like I just felt like I was just hot and my heart was racing, and I can remember it very clearly because it was a little bit traumatic. But I also didn't understand why. Like it was like it wasn't said, but I kind of assumed it had to do with my dad, right? So that was like the first kind of experience where I started internalizing things. And then when I did start going into grade school, and I was made fun of pretty much daily. I cried on the way home from school daily. My hair was much a different texture than it is now. A lot, I've processed it, colored it, and such over the years that it definitely is a different texture now. I had an afro and fair skin and a big butt, and I was tortured at school all the time. I remember middle school, same thing. Everybody was dating. I was not, because I looked different than everyone else, but it wasn't it wasn't that anybody even knew that I was Black. It was what are you? What are you? That was always the question mark above my head. What are you? And I really didn't realize how much I internalized all of that until I had kids, and realized that a lot of my insecurities were starting to come out when I was trying to make them feel more secure and trying to understand why I was feeling this way. And I feel like I made a lot of choices because I felt more comfortable in the Black community that and I just recently talked about this with my grandmother. She said, Tiffany, you can't just deny your white side either. And I know that there have been times where my mom has felt that way, that I do that. And I didn't realize that I had been doing that. And I think, talking about it like that allowed me to kind of reflect. And I think that I never felt like I was denying that I was white or my white culture, which is Italian and Dutch, by the way, so still spicy. I never felt like I was denying that, but I felt like it was forefront. It was always forefront, so people always assumed I was white. When I'm in a room with people, they'll talk about things that I didn't used to be comfortable saying, hey, you can't say that, because they just assumed that I was one of them. With just, a perm or something as I got older. And then I felt really accepted by the Black community, originally family, right? That's where I got my self-pride from, was my dad's family. And so that's where I just gravitated towards. And so I found community in hanging out with my Black friends when I finally got my driver's license and I could leave Marysville. I would go to Seattle and go to Everett and actually make friends. And I started having a different shift of insecurity, because the Black women would be mad at the Black men for dancing with me or dating me, because why are you messing with that white woman? So I shrunk even more, right? So, and I still carry that with me. And I realized that I am more empathetic towards my Black side. I fully recognize that, but I feel like that's because that's where I was raised, and I had the most pride and love given to me. But I also recognize that, like, obviously my passing is a privilege, right? So I never want to take away the Black woman's experience in any way, shape, or form. I actually am one that feels like, man, as these darker Black women, I think, are so beautiful. Like, there is a part of me that always wishes that I was a little bit darker, so that there was no question about who I was or what I am, and nobody could argue. So I get that a lot with the, Black love. And so, does it count when I'm doing it, right? Because yes, I am, but I'm also all these other things as well, right? But this is what I've always kind of identified with, and have always wanted to facilitate change for our Black community and things like that. So when I get hit from both sides, it just made me shrink. And so I just got really good at being whoever I needed to be in the presence of who I was with. And I think that my daughter has helped me so much, because true story, we were at a protest, and the entire time I'm doing these protests, I'm doing them because I want to make a change, but in the back of my head, I'm like, they're gonna not want me here. They're gonna think I don't belong here. They're gonna, you know. And there was one where we ended at the park, and they said, "Well, can I get all the Black people up front?" Rainice ran right up to the front. 46 years old. I'm still sitting in the back, going, I shouldn't be up there. Like, I didn't know. Like, I was like, so, and she's like, "Mom, what are you doing?" She turned around and was like, literally, like, "Mom," and I was like, I don't want to step on anybody's journey. I don't want to step on anyone's experience. And so I am aware that I am white, but I have never felt accepted by either as an adult. But my roots were with my Black family, and I think that's why I identify with that so much. But I think it's really important that every person's experience is going to be different, depending on your family dynamic, your social dynamic, whether you grew up in the South or in the North, right? Whether you're as fair as Rainice and I, or you can be multicultural and be really, really dark and nobody ever questions it, right? So everybody's experience is different. And I think, you know, I still have a lot of work to do to be comfortable in my own skin and in my own right, because I still get annoyed. I definitely get more angry when it's violence against Black people or Native Americans than I do anything else. I do think that all violence is ridiculous, and we all need to just love each other and just try to be godlike and be good. But I definitely feel more drawn to my Black side almost always. But I'm still working on trying to feel comfortable in my own skin. I didn't realize how, like I said, how much it was still affecting me until my kids started getting older and I was watching them flourish in their own skin. And it's like, okay, so how come they got it figured out already? I'm 47 trying to figure it out still. But yeah, I just think that if we can all just honor each other's experience, then we're good, you know?
Thank you so much, Mom, for sharing. I kept like getting teary-eyed just because I feel like all interracial people can relate to that feeling of like just feeling like the worry of not being accepted from that Black side. Like I've definitely been there too. It took me a long time to even feel comfortable wearing braids because I was like, same as you, Tatiana, like am I allowed to? Like, are people gonna like get on me for it? And my mom, she's had so many experiences being called the white woman and like this and that. And I think it's like a different set of struggles being more white passing. Like trying to deal with that struggle is even harder because at least when people like see me a lot of the time, they know right away. I'm like, they either think I'm Mexican or like mixed with Black. But like with my mom, she's always called like the white girl, which is weird to me because like she got that head of hair and like all these Black features. But like, I feel like that's literally, like she said, it's a privilege that she can like pass as white, but also it's even harder for her to feel like she belongs. And I feel like our community, that's something we really need to work on, is like stop dividing ourselves based on skin shades, like, and based on like half Black and not. Like we all need to come together as a Black community to solve all of these issues. We can't just keep further dividing ourselves, further like marginalizing gay people, marginalizing lighter skins, referring to them like they're not Black, or marginalizing darker skin tones, making them feel like they're not beautiful. Like that's something we definitely need to work on in our Black community for sure. So yeah, and Mom, the only reason I feel so like open with like myself and my Blackness is because I think you did try so hard to like make sure that me and Keon had that. And like because you didn't have that, and like yeah, it always did make me sad. And I definitely feel like you're coming more into yourself now, like more than I've ever seen. But like it always made me sad, like seeing how my mom would struggle and like not feel a part of that community, because like I said, that's the side where most mixed people relate to, is their Black side. So like it's definitely a struggle. And Mom, did you want to keep going?
No, I was just gonna say, no, I agree with what you're saying, because I mean, that is where, you know, as he was saying earlier, that is where I was rooted. That's where my pride and my self-image started was with my Black family. So it wasn't ever intentional for me to be like, I don't want to be white. It's just, that's what I saw as loving and giving and caring and beautiful, because that's what I received from that side of my family, right? So that's where I was rooted. I still was able to be shook though, right? As I'm entering in society, and we're always, regardless of your race, when you're growing up, adolescence, you're still trying to figure everything out. So having to deal with race issues on top of that is a whole nother set of insecurities. So I'm just really proud of all of you guys for figuring this stuff out so early.
Thank you so much, Mom. Real quick, Tatiana, I was gonna say before I pass it to you, what was it? Oh yeah, also I hate the stigma of like how a lot of like Black women do have an issue with like mixed people. I definitely get where that like hatred comes from, because like I said, there is a privilege of being lighter skinned. So I'm always understanding when I do run into a Black person that's not accepting, because I know the only reason they're not accepting is because of their own experiences and like what they've had to deal with. But I also think it's important to keep in mind that like, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of unfair to be mad at someone for being like mixed, maybe be mad at like the way our society is, where like lighter skinned is seen as better, or be mad at the guy that only goes for white women and mixed women, you know. Maybe like redirect our anger, if that makes sense. Yeah, that's all I was gonna say on that. Tatiana.
Sorry, I'm doing this all from my phone, so I'm kind of struggling over here. But I think it's just so interesting how, I mean, at least, you know, the three of us have all really have had the same experiences. And I'm pretty sure, just because obviously not every mixed person is in this session, but I mean, it's just like we all kind of had this shared experience of we're not Black enough, we're not white enough, or whatever our mixture is, we're just not enough. So where are we? Who, when do we stand up? Like, is it okay if we stand up? Is it okay for me to have these braids or this type of hairstyle, or to dress this certain way, or to look or listen to this or whatever? It's just having that shared experience is, you know, it's nice. Also, just I really cannot wait to reach a point where we don't have to deal with this struggle of, do I fit, where do I fit in? Or I mean, even me being as light as I am, whenever I do go to my white friend's house, she does have, I mean, they're all of them, all of her friends are white, and I feel like the darkest person in the room, and it is such an uncomfortable feeling. None of her friends, I mean, we're all like friends, but it's just, it's such an uncomfortable feeling, like, you know, do I belong here? Is it okay that I'm here? Like, should I join in this conversation? Are they going to say anything? But then when I am in a group of very dark women, I'm like, I'm the whitest one here. Like, is it okay that I'm here? Are they going to say anything? Do they think like, it's just all these different things. And I mean, I'm definitely going to teach my kids, like, you know, whatever you look like, it's okay. Like, I also too have struggled. Even my husband, everyone thinks he's Mexican, and he's like just half Black and half white. And it really is just such a struggle. But I hope for, because we're all so young here, that when we are raising our children into the culture that we are raising them in, that we can just have them feel accepted from both sides, whatever that may be for that family. Just so that way, when we do have all of the new generation, it's not like, oh, do I fit in here? Do I fit in there? It's just, you know, hey, come along and just play with us, whatever. I feel like kids don't really, I don't know, I feel like very small children don't really care that much, because their parents probably haven't instilled it to them yet. Because racism isn't, you're not just born that way, like you're taught it. So I feel like it's not really like too harsh of a thing, at least for me in my experience. Let me say that. For me in my experience, it wasn't like, oh my God, she's Black, or oh my God, she looks this way when I was younger. It definitely in middle school was like a big thing. But I don't know, I just hope, you know, all these people who are having babies now, like they just teach their kids, like, just don't treat us any type of way. Don't make us feel like we're not accepted into this, or we can't do that, or we have to straighten our hair to fit in, or we have to dress this way for you to like us. Like, it's just the whole us sharing an experience thing is such a bittersweet thing, because yes, wow, we all don't fit in and we all feel that way, but it's like, I don't want to feel that way anymore. And I totally get, like, Tiffany, with what you were saying at the protests, and they're telling all the Black people, you know, stand up. I even, when you said that, I was like, would I stand up? Because I don't know. I really don't. Like I've said, like with my hair, I am scared to run into the situation of someone darker than me telling me like I shouldn't have these braids, or why is this my hairstyle, or I'm too white for this or something. Like, I haven't, but I have this anxiety that it's gonna happen and then I'm gonna like get beat up or something, because it's like, this white girl shouldn't be having this, and it's like, no, like, I'm Black and I identify as Black. And I mean, and also like you said, how your mom was like, you know, you don't really not accept, but you just don't like your white side, you know what I'm trying to say? Because my mom doesn't she doesn't see herself as white. I didn't grow up that way. I grew up half Black and half Mexican, really. I did not grow up in the culture of white people at all. My mom kept telling us we're independent Black women, and that's just how I've lived my entire life. I'm an independent Black woman, the way it is in my family, but for society and the bigger picture, it, you know, it's really not like that. And I just hope we all just reach a point where we are just what we are, and that's okay, and you can be accepted wherever, and we don't walk around with these question marks over our heads, because it is just, it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I never denied, you know, I never, like, I love my mother and I love my mother's family. It was just my first experiences of white people were a traumatic one, or I was being made fun of. So it wasn't the side of me that I just like dove into to learn more about, because I felt like it was clear that I am white, but I also didn't like what I was seeing or hearing, right? So
Yeah, I could
and I
see.
struggle with the hair thing too. Like, nobody knew how to do my hair.
Mhm.
You know, I couldn't get a haircut because I had like an afro for a long time. It wasn't until I was 16 or 17 that my grandmother put a relaxer in my hair, and it all of a sudden had like a different texture where I could do something with it. And then over the years, I got more comfortable with my natural hair and quit doing that. And it meant everything in the world to me when Rainice got to the point where she felt comfortable with her own hair. Because yeah, we did some of the treatments and stuff to her hair because she really wanted me to. And I really didn't want to. I wanted her to love her hair, her natural hair. And so when she finally did fall in love with her natural hair, it was like everything to me. So, I mean, something as small as hair, people don't realize just can actually cause so much self-esteem issues.
And that's why I want parents of mixed kids to learn about hair if you are having a mixed child, because it is so important. And I feel like the first thing I was made fun of was my hair. And it's like, why is it frizzy? Why is it like this? You look cuter with straight hair, blah, 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 blah. And then it was my nose, then my lips, and then turn out, but it all started with my hair. And it is so important, and it is a big thing in the Black community. And hair, please, I learn about it. Okay. I've learned so much over the last few years. When I decided to go natural, I was like, why have I not done this literally just the whole time? Because my hair was so gross and damaged by the time I got to that point. I chopped like half of it off and never doing it again. So everyone get on their natural hair journey. I promise you, it is so worth it.
Yeah, I think that like a lot of people don't realize like hair is an important part of our identity. Like, I just had to get on people at my job because like some girl, when I had my hair braided, it's gonna come up, take my braids and start braiding them without even asking me. You're gonna come up, take my already braided braids and start braiding. Like, do you understand the disrespect? Like the inside feeling that I got, I got so hot, and I was just like, bro, like, people don't get, like, we like our hair a lot of the time. So like, yeah, I definitely agree with like the importance of teaching that love of like how you look and everything. And my mom definitely tried. She only gave in with me because I was getting bullied so bad. And I literally came to her just like crying, like, please, like, I can't take this anymore. And that's the only reason she broke, because she did try. And I remember I would always beg her and she would always be like, no, like, so like, yeah, I think like what Ismail was saying too, that self-affirmation, like doing that for your kids so they're more sure in themselves, and like having these talks, like just like how you have to talk about like with your black child, like, oh, you're black, this is what that means. Yes, you have that talk with us, but also have that talk about being interracial, what comes with that. Like you might run into people like this, you might run into people like that, but just know like you are, you know, this. And I think being white a lot of the time can be seen as insecurity for us because of the fact that we're not completely accepted with our white side. And then with our black side, we're not completely accepted because we're white. So like you see how that becomes like an insecurity, I feel like, for all like mixed people. Cause there were times where I wished I was darker too. Like, um, and then my aunt said, I struggled with my self-esteem when I was little because I wanted to look white like you, Kristen, and mom. So like, yeah, my mom and her sister are like the lighter skinned, and then their mom is white. And then yeah, my auntie Danny, she was like the little brown baby. And like I remember looking at my brother actually, because he has like a darker skin complexion than me, and being like, oh, I wish I was like my brother's skin complexion. A lot of the time, because like he was not really ever questioned as much for being like mixed. I feel like he was seen as like a black man a lot of the time. Like I'm sure he still had his struggles, but like because he had that darker skin tone, he has dreads, and like, you know, or not dreads, sorry, locks. He was more seen as like a black person, and I would like kind of envy him for that a lot of the time. So it did, like every interracial person has to like have that battle with like feeling like they have to choose a side, when in reality being interracial in itself is like a whole different perspective, a whole different side. Like, you know, that's a whole different thing in itself. Like we're interracial black women, that's literally the way to describe us, you know. Mia, you wanted to say?
Yeah, can you hear me? Perfect. I just wanted to first say that I'm really enjoying everybody's conversations, and I'm here mostly to listen. Obviously, I'm not a person of color. And for those who don't know, I went to high school with Ray, and so I was going to talk a little bit about cheer. We were on the cheer team together, and when we started talking about hair, it reminded me how this was more like our first year's Ray, but how like the slicked back ponytail was required and no flyaways, like nothing at all. And at the time, I didn't really think much of it, but like thinking back, for people who don't have like super straight, long hair, that's hard to do. And I think like towards your senior year, you did like the half up, half down because she started getting a little bit more like lenient. But like just like hair in general, and thinking about how it's important to be inclusive of all hair textures. And so, especially in a sport where that's like kind of a big part of it. So yeah, I just think that that's interesting for sure, how keeping in mind that not everybody's hair works the same way, and that different hairstyles look different on different people, and that there's just a wide variety. So that conversation just kind of reminded me of thinking about our experiences from both being in cheer together.
Yeah, no, that's like actually really true. And I never really thought of it like that either. But like my first year of high school, I did like tell my mom right away. I was like, I'm straightening my hair every day. Like I had like a point of like breakdown to her, because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in cheer. Like I'm going to be outside. My hair's going to get wet. It's going to look a mess. But like it was just easier for me, like a lot of the time, to do that straight hair, slick back ponytail. That was like the easiest way, because my hair didn't easily go into a ponytail at one point. Like it was struggling from all the flat iron and stuff. It was just a poof at times. Like there was no curl, just a poof. So like, yeah, it's like, that's what I'm saying, when this stuff is literally like embedded into our society, and people are saying like, oh, you're being too sensitive, you don't need to look at this and that. But it's like, no, this is really what people have to deal with all the time. And like, it's 2022 and we're doing like a lot better, but like there's still a lot of things that we have to like think about. Like we can't just live in a society like we're European and that's it. Like Western European. We have to like actually, since we have been like integrated, we have to think about those things and start making it normalized to be like a different in different cultures. I'm starting to see like even in my political classes, like how this racial hierarchy affects everything, even our international relations, like our international organizations, like everything was like set a certain way basically. And like they just based everything, our international organizations and everything on racial hierarchies. And like, yeah, I just think it's important to remember, like, I don't know, to walk in other people's shoes at times. Like maybe you don't see stuff as a problem, but like try to like wear a Black person or interracial person's shoes sometimes and see like what they have to face, you know. There's some things going on in the chat. Trey said, I think it has to do with that you're a woman and being exotic. It's, oh shoot, I just exited completely out. It's seen as more appealing. Let's see. On you and not on a man who'll usually be associated with just Black. Light skin is seen as softer, hence why it's attributed on a woman more often. Yeah, that's really true. I feel like, and I actually never like gave that much thought, but like, it's true. It seems like with everything, like when you're a light-skinned male, it's a lot easier to be accepted into the community than like being a light-skinned female. And then Trey said, dark skin has a more masculine undertone. Examples when people talk about Michelle Obama, Serena Williams, and Viola Davis looking like men, which is very, very true. Yeah, I feel like it's just this thing that has been so deeply put into each person's mind in our society, put into the way we structure our society, that like a lot of the times we don't even realize, like we're just so used to it, you know. And it's really takes a person to be marginalized for them to see like what these issues are a lot of the time. And to go off topic really quick a little bit, just because this is a place where we're supposed to be able to vent. There is this coworker. She's half white and half Mexican. And Victor, I don't know if you would feel confident like saying maybe some of your experiences, but really quick with this girl, she grew up in a predominantly white area and 98% white and everything. And she just, I don't know, I guess when I'm at a place where I'm like at Eastern where there's like all white people, you kind of just gravitate towards like any person of color because you're like, oh, they'll kind of understand me, you know, like even if they're Asian or Mexican, you're just like, oh, we'll kind of have like some common ground. We've been marginalized a little bit in some way, you know. But with this specific girl, I think because she grew up like in an all white society, she isn't really like that. Like we can't relate on anything. She has very weird views. She says very derogative things about like her Mexican culture, but then still it's like she chooses when it's convenient to be Mexican, if that makes sense, which I think we should also talk about the negative side of like being interracial too, which is like you can't just pick and choose when you want to be like, you know, your Mexican side or your Black side or, you know, your white side. Like you gotta be you, you know. And that's what she does a lot. It seems like she tries to like pick and choose like when it's convenient for her to be like Mexican or not. And maybe she is trying to do that thing where it's like she's trying to fit in or something, which I could get because like I said, we've all been there as like being interracial, but like this girl, she just she does a lot of things towards me, like microaggressions. I've been having these issues with like my boss too. And I want to get off my chest because I'm just so fed up with like feeling like, I don't know, what's the word? I don't know, just fed up really of like seeing another person of color like not be as like educated or like, so I don't know, I guess this stresses the point more what I'm trying to say of like really knowing your culture, because if you don't, then you end up like marginalizing your people that are like supposed to be like your brothers and sisters. Like we're supposed to like understand each other in a way, you know, or like how she marginalizes her own culture. Like at times, you know, she'll say like racist things about Mexicans and I'm just like, you are Mexican. And like it just shows me even more that that's why it's important to introduce that culture and like stand strong in it, because you could be where you only want to be Black, like how we all shared, but you could also be where you literally only want to be white. I've seen that happen a lot of times too. So like, yeah, I just had to get it off my chest because this girl, that was the girl who was like braiding my hair and unbraiding it and then didn't get why it was such a big deal. And she's also said, I don't say the N-word, but like in songs because it's music. And I was just like, yeah, I don't think that's okay either. That's literally what I said. Oh my God. When I tell you guys, one Zoom is literally gonna have to be just about my work experience working at the library as the only Black woman there. I could go story on story, and we are starting to take action because it's been such a toxic environment at my job for like the Hispanics, the Asians. We are getting it from our boss, and it's happened for years and everything. So we're trying to take action on that, and I'll have an update with that. But yeah, that was just the last thing I wanted to vent about. Anybody else have any last points?
I'll just say real quick, because I know all of you have kind of touched on making sure that, you educate your kids. A lot of us weren't educated on who we were to begin with. I was fortunate enough to have a grandparent, two grandparents on my dad's side that knew where they came from and shared all of those stories, and they shared those stories with you. I didn't really have that on my mom's side, so maybe that's part of my conflict, but I just think that now we have so much access to things that, yes, I feel as a parent, it is our responsibility to make sure that our children know all sides of us, not just our Black or white, but our, Native American side that we have, and your French Creole side that you have on your dad's side. He's been good about sharing that information with you guys. I think we need to know all of who we are and appreciate all of who we are. And we've got to instill that in our kids now that we know better, now that we know we weren't educated. The hope is that you guys break that pattern. But, we can still do that now. It doesn't matter how old you guys are, we can still learn together. We have so much more access than we ever did, prior to the internet. So just really, again, wanted to reiterate that and say I'm really hopeful for our future with all of you guys on these calls.
Thank you so much, Mom. And yeah, I definitely agree because I don't really be knowing much about my white side either, honestly. Like I know I'm a little spicy Italian, but like I don't know. It's hard too. That's the other thing. We can relate to Black people. Like Black people don't ever know where they originate from. Neither do we. We have like 20 different races in us. And like I feel like that's another thing we can relate to. We have no clue. Like when people ask what I am, I just say like the three main things I know. But in reality, I'm probably about 20. But in the chat, we have some things. A lot of Mexicans think they're exempt from racism, but let's be clear, Mexican isn't a race. You can be a white Mexican and benefit from all the privileges of being white, just like Afro-Latinos. There is white ones. And then Victor says, yes, what Trey said. So yes, thank you very much. That is another important thing to bring up. I feel like, because that's what I'm saying. Like, I know like just all interracial people can relate on some grounds, like we just, I guess unless like you're like the one girl that's like been surrounded by all white people, but like we've just had certain shared experiences, and like that girl is white passing, so maybe that's why she hasn't been like marginalized and like can't relate to a lot. Like I don't know, she just confuses me with what she says, talking about minorities shouldn't get scholarships. Like, girl, what are you? You are a minority. Like, we should get reparations. We should get more. Like, what do you mean? But another thing in the chat, a very odd sorry, I don't know why it's so hard for me to freaking read this thing. I don't like this with this computer for some reason, Mom.
Because you haven't gotten your glasses.
Oh, okay, maybe that could be part of it. Anyways, white Mexicans. Oh, this is from Victor, I believe. White Mexicans confuse racism with xenophobia, especially with so many attacks against our people at the southern border. It's a very odd confusion because it's mainly right. I don't get this. Okay. It's mainly because they are brown, which is seen as dangerous and usually an easy fix if they just educated themselves. Thank you very much for sharing that perspective, because like I'm not familiar with a lot of like the issues with being like a lighter skinned Mexican, and like I'm sure I could relate in like some ways. also. So thank you very much for adding that. And then Tatiana.
Yeah, to add on to the whole, when Trey said white Mexicans can benefit from the privileges of being white, yes, because like I've said, and you guys have seen my mom, she is a very pink Mexican woman, half Mexican woman. And like when she's in her meetings, she's either like the only woman in her meetings or the only colored person. She's a colored woman with no colors, what she calls it. And like her company is very racist, unfortunately. And they'll just say a bunch of stuff and they'll just keep going, and she'll just, let them talk and say what they've got. And then at the end of it, she comes snapping back like, okay, first of all, absolutely the fuck not. And they're like taken aback because they don't realize that she is this woman of color, and they just started spewing they just started showing their asses right in front of, especially she is so high up in her position. She's gotten people fired because of the things they have said. And she is that bitch. She calls herself, she's the Beyonce in her company. And she really, truly is. I'm not gonna lie. But I think when you have a certain privilege of being white passing, and you are around white people who do say these things and they don't realize, I think it is important for us, or, you, whoever it is, to speak up and let them know, like, hey, like, I know you might think that's cool in your friend group, but it's not cool, period. And here's why. Like, try to educate, use your privilege of being white passing and help your other side that, can't really speak on it. Because I mean, it's just, regardless of how old you are or whatever you may be, it's just so important to speak up and to not let people just get away with sly things that they say. Because then they're just going to live their whole life thinking that's okay. And then their kids are going to think that's okay. And then that kind of just wipes out my whole thing of our generation being great. Because now this other generation is just going to come and, like, it's a whole thing. So if you are whatever race you are mixed with, whatever you are, if you do have the privilege of being white passing, please speak up whenever you hear some things, because you definitely will, because people don't know, and people are ignorant, and they just think they can say whatever because they think they're so high up, which, whatever. And just like, it is scary to speak up. It is scary to say things. Even I have problems with being like, even with my coworkers, like, it's just like, hey, we're not doing that here, but just do it. Just do it. It will benefit. Even if they get upset, even if they are like, oh, whatever, I'm not even going to listen to whatever you're saying, at least they have that thought in their head. And hopefully, if they are more of an open-minded person, they will, they'll be more careful with what they say, because hopefully they have realized, like, oh shit, that's me thinking this way was because of how I grew up. But let me, because my mom has converted some people to not being so closed-minded off some things, and we've had a little book club, and she's gotten them to research more things and look into certain things and do all these things, and she has that power as a white passing woman. So just, if you are, please help speak up for those of us who can't, and because they will listen more so to you than they would someone darker, so yeah, just wanted to.
I definitely agree with that, Tatiana. It took me so long to like come into my voice because I struggled so much with my identity, but I feel like that's why now I am like one of the loudest people on these issues, is because I know I have a privilege, and like, what are you doing with your privilege is really what it is. Like, if you're white, what are you doing with your privilege? Are you using it to like make things better, or are you just saying, okay, yeah, I have privilege, and sitting on it, or not even acknowledging that you have privilege, So yeah, there is ways to use like privilege for positive change, I couldn't agree more. And I'm always the person that makes it awkward. I don't care. I'm always the person that's like, no, you're not going to say that. I'll make the whole party get awkward. I do not care. Because when I hold it in now, since I am so sure of myself, it literally feels like it's hurting me. I'm like, oh, say it one more time or I'm going to explode. Like, I can't. So I think it's important to get that confidence to speak up, because once you do, like, you could end up changing someone's mind, or at least letting them know that's not okay to say, at least, you know, around me, like, you're not going to be talking like that. And like making them think a little bit, you know, making them uncomfortable because they just made you uncomfortable by doing that or saying that. So like now you're going to make them uncomfortable and be like, hey, that wasn't okay, you know? But I do know that is hard because like I know a lot of people that still struggle with like speaking up on these issues. Sorry, I'm a little sick. I know my mom's over here laughing at me. Anyways, any last things before we close out the Zoom? I really liked it. It was good. I liked everybody's thoughts. As always, thank you for the people that speak a lot. We had some like newer people too. But yes, thank you so much, Trey, for being our other speaker, and Tatiana added a whole bunch to our conversation too. And Victor, thank you for giving us that like different perspective. And a big shout out to my mom for being brave enough to share her experiences, because I feel like it just encapsulated like all of our experiences being like interracial. So it was really important for us to hear it. And yeah, again, hit us up for the pins on our Instagram, Twitter, or individually. They're going to start being for sale. And with that being said, I'm going to close out.